I give Jordan Peterson's Discovering Personality course a 10 out of 10. I think it's fantastic. If you want to learn about personality traits or from the big five personality traits, just to get a better understanding of yourself and also to understand your connection with other people and how to develop your way forward in life, definitely get this course. Especially if it's on sale. I got it on sale, spent just 60 quid, got access to about 5-6 hours worth of video content, really condensed information. If you're familiar with Jordan Peterson, you've heard him refer to the different personality traits. Imagine if you got all the best bits, all the golden bits, and just got those and condensed them down into the videos. That's what you get on this course, basically. There were some lectures like on conscientiousness and openness where I feel like he could have gone a bit less into storytelling, a bit more into giving examples. Not a big problem. And also, if you're interested in Jordan Peterson's other service, the Understand Myself thing, to understand what your traits are, you don't have to buy that if you buy the Discovering Personality course. That comes included. Okay, so I'm just going to talk first a little bit about the results I got on the Understand Myself test. So I'm really low in extroversion, only 12%, particularly low in assertiveness, only 9%, which means I'm not the person who takes the initiative, takes the action, organizes a party, and invites people over. I basically never do that, and yeah, it's pretty obvious. I know myself. I don't do that. I'm low on compassion, which is an aspect of agreeableness. So I do want to evolve the amount of empathy and sympathy that I feel for other people, and I feel like I'm slowly adding more to that as I learn more about it. I feel like I used to be way lower on it, so it's still something that I want to push and improve on. Conscientiousness, I might be high in orderliness, but I'm really low in industriousness. Industriousness being the hard working thing. I'll go into a bit more detail about it later, but basically I need to be more hard working. Yep, I just feel like my life's going to feel more complete if I do that. And lastly, in neuroticism, I'm a little bit high in withdrawal, and I need to lower that. So basically, I do feel more anticipatory anxiety than average. I am sensitive to social rejection, and I feel more hurt than can be expected for social rejection. Once I am hurt, frightened, or anxious, it does take me longer to recover. Now, that's very important for me to read that sentence and to understand, yes, that is a very big, you know, reflection of how my life is. Now that I've gone into a bit of detail about, what my results were, I can now talk about what I learned through the course. So, an aspect of extroversion is there's motivation, which can help you establish your goal, and then there's emotions, which help you keep on track. If you feel positive emotions, you are taking steps towards the goals, your desired goals. But if you're feeling negative emotion, it can make you feel like you're stepping backwards. And so the amount of extroversion that I have is really low, which means I am going to be a bit more sensitive to not heading towards my goals as opposed to the positive energy that I do get from heading towards it. And then there's the aspects of neuroticism, volatility, and withdrawal. So anxiety is there to help you prevent pain. It's better to be anxious and careful than to be hurt and damaged. So how cluttered is the pathway towards your goal? The more cluttered it is, the more negative emotion you feel. So pain is related to uncertainty, but you can counter it with a plan, routine, and voluntary active exposure. I talked about being sensitive to social rejection, but I've got to voluntarily and actively expose myself to that, and I will learn that I am more competent than the thing is dangerous. So what level of risk am I willing to expose myself to? I've got to give myself a manageable but challenging task to build my confidence over time. Again, to show that I am more competent than the thing is dangerous. In terms of agreeableness, I already talked about the compassion aspect, being more sympathetic, empathetic, interested in other people's problems and needs, and being more generous with my time for others. I'll go a little bit into the conscientiousness aspect. There is industriousness, which is carrying out plans, avoiding wasting time, finishing what started, always knowing what I'm doing, typically being hardworking and feeling guilty when I'm unproductive. These are aspects that I want to increase in my life. Probably not so much feeling guilty when I'm unproductive. You've got to be a bit mindful of that. But I am very much interested in being more consistent, carrying out my plans, avoiding wasting times. If you saw my recent video about 100 values, I talked about diligence and duty, very important aspects. And I feel like my life would click more into place if I had this aspect. So what I've got to do really to develop this aspect is break down the steps into small parts so that I can implement them and reward myself when I take the steps. Know what I did and then reward myself. So I don't feel a lot of positive emotion when heading towards my goals. Like when I opened a video editing software to work on some video editing, I don't feel good normally. But if I gave myself a reward in that moment, like I get to eat a little bit of chocolate, even though eating chocolate isn't healthy, doesn't really help me, my life, my brain, and all of that. The fact that there's a reward and I can know what steps I'm taking and I can reward myself from it, I'm sure after enough times I'll stop needing to eat chocolate to feel good from doing the work. So I do need to take the voluntary active steps in things that feel difficult at the moment and that I'm not carrying through. But if I do it, notice it, and reward myself for it, that will help. An interesting aspect which you can use to help improve your relationships is when someone does something that you'd like them to do more of. You've got to note it. You've got to reward them for it. You've got to smile and say, "Hey, I noticed you did that. That's really cool." It's a tentative reward, and that will help your relationships. There are obstacles that you need to face. You need to break them down into smaller steps and then start confronting them, and this will make you more competent. For example, social rejection. It can be a whole big thing in my mind where a simple thought like, I could go up and talk to that person suddenly becomes, no, don't do that. That's a terrible idea. It's going to go terrible. It's going to be terrible. Don't do that. And my brain just, 1 second after thinking that's a good idea, just conjures up all of this negative emotion. I've got to break it down into the step of, I've just got to walk towards this person, look them in the eye and just say hi. Make it a small step. Reward myself with some chocolate later. I don't know. Anyway, lastly, when you're arguing with a person, constrain the argument to the small present detail, not to the range of problems from past and into the future. So, for example, you want them to clean the dishes. Say, "Oh, could you clean the dishes right now, please? I was hoping that you would do that." Don't say, "Oh, you've never cleaned the dishes and you'll never clean the dishes. You're terrible with all of these things." You've really got to reduce the argument to the present small detail that you would like changed. One last note I took is a leader is someone who identifies the right questions. So that's an interesting thing about openness is if you're high in openness, you know the right questions to ask, and that makes a good leader. I'm not particularly high in openness, but it's something that I think I can increase, like my intellect, and that I think I can increase it. Anyway, yeah, so those are the main notes that I took from the course, the main notes that I'm going to want to remind myself in the future when I look back on this video. And I'm curious to see how my personality will change over the next few years, 5 years, 10 years, whenever I decide to take it again. And it's really interesting to know how there's a reflection of how much anxiety I feel for certain aspects of my life, which I know are the step in the right direction, even though it's painful. I've also got to break it down into the smallest steps that I can take, know that I can manage to take it, reward myself, and realize I am competent in these areas, not as incompetent to not deal with these things as I have been so far in my life. And I feel like that will spiral positively in my life. So yeah, that's everything I wanted to say. Thank you for watching. I do recommend you get the course, and yeah, peace.